software, internet, no translation. Today, video streaming is a challenge. How do you say streaming in a language which hasn't developed that use of it yet? We have a question now from Costa Rica, from the Centro Costarricense de Ciencia y Cultura in San Jose. Welcome. Your question, please.
Yes. Development of the global network is involving more and more several sectors of society in such a way that this is going to determine access to information. Does this mean that on a medium and or long term, the citizens will have to perhaps just do without the traditional TVs or PCs or telephones in order to have in our homes some kind of digital technology that in net-based digital technology devices or of all kinds or some sort?
Yes, the Internet really doesn't displace other technologies. It's additive. In terms of the cost, what you'll find is that the Internet will be able to provide TV, radio, and telephone all through the same connection.
That's true, but there's also sort of a fight going on right now as who is going to bring you those kinds of services between the telephone companies and the cable companies. But media do not replace each other, they complement each other.
And we have a question from the Colegio de Bachilleros Estado de Sinaloa in Mexico, Guasave. Welcome. Your question, please.
We would like to congratulate the panelists for this wonderful program. The question is for people who are in the educational sector. We think it's very important that Internet too can become a source for education and that will have some impact on a global level. And that for us is very important. But our question is the following. Is there any guideline that will regulate the inclusion of the humanistic aspect of the coeducation in general? Because we need to have a holistic education and we need to have the technological and scientific advances, but we cannot leave behind or set aside the humanistic approach to education. We need to incorporate these two elements.
Well, I think that the Internet actually encourages human interactions. Instead of just sitting on your couch watching TV, you begin to interact with your TV. And I think the Internet is fabulous in this regard. I think the humanistic elements will be part and parcel of the Internet because that is what ultimately people want. And therefore, people will go to places that have incorporated that very well.
It's an open forum. Everyone can participate. So there is no one who is going to regulate what you can put on the Internet and you cannot in terms of art, culture, humanities. You can contribute whatever you like.
There is a conflict sometimes that while there's exceptional humanistic information on the web, the quality of human interaction can be affected in a very complex way. We have a question from the Dominican Republic, again, from the Centro de Gestión y Investigación in Santo Domingo. Welcome. Your question, please.
You just mentioned something about your interview package allowing to create video and audio presentations using PowerPoint as well. Does this mean that you could receive an electronic ticket that you also mentioned? How does this work? Can you sell this? Can you sell this conference to a specific audience if they buy a ticket? Is that what it is?
Okay, well, I think there are two questions there. The first question is audio and video integrated into PowerPoint? And the answer is absolutely yes. And I think not only is it audio and video integrated to PowerPoint, but it's automatically converted into the Internet language and can be automated in how it's distributed over the Internet. In terms of the second feature, audience, it does provide an electronic ticket. The ticket is to catalog how many people are coming and to remind them to come back to the event. It can be incorporated with a pay-per-view mechanism, and that's been done, and I think that is a second feature of the system.
And we have a question from our distinguished colleagues in Cuba, from the CENIA Internet in La Habana, Cuba. Welcome. Your question, please. All right.
Wanted to know and to define a little more the bandwidth minimum, the acceptable minimum bandwidth, in order to have a quality for audio and video live. And if there is, or if it has been thought about, some sort of software solution that will enable us to improve the constant interferences in sound and that are produced during the reception of signals because they are so jammed and because of the congestion which we have seen now. So is there any way, any software solution for jams and interferences and traffic on the lines?
Okay, well, I think there's two questions. The minimum bandwidth required is 28.8 modem, but I would say that the 56K is very, very cost effective, and I would highly encourage 56K. And that actually should get rid of most of the clogging and congestion you might be experiencing. And another thing I would say is, if it's possible, if you're really having a lot of difficulty, to try changing your ISP provider. Some providers are definitely better than others. And I also want to comment just on this from the last session. We were talking about developing countries, and actually Interview, our company, was originally conceived of by a Cuban national who's now living in the United States.
And we have a question from the Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua in Chihuahua, Mexico. Welcome. Your question.
Buenos días. Are there universities online that have the academic weight and importance and just as the traditional ones, and will Internet substitute the current libraries?
Well, there are two questions, if I may take the academic question. Almost all American universities and colleges have Internet presence, from the very prominent ones, such as Pennsylvania State University, down to every conceivable community college has Internet presence. And yes, there are quality courses online. So that's the general answer to that question.
Right. Our company actually delivers for Harvard, for Johns Hopkins, for University of California. So I think extremely prominent universities are online for audio and video. But also, when my son just applied to college, everything was done online. There was no paper involved in him getting into college, which was very amazing and I think very cost effective. In terms of the Internet replacing colleges, I think that the universities that learn to use the Internet will be able to enhance their revenue streams and be much more competitive on a global setting. But the university function is still extremely important.
A question now from the Universidad Privada Boliviana in Cochabamba, Bolivia. Welcome. Your question, please.
From the explanation, it is clear that it is possible to educate via distance. But I think there are some elements that are not possible that cannot be transmitted via internet. For instance, which is the elements that in class element you cannot really replace: values, principles, discipline. How can you actually overcome these problems when you're using streaming? Can the streaming overcome these little elements that you don't have? And tell me, how well has the streaming been implemented in the rest of the world, or is it in South America at all? Do you know?
Okay. Well, first of all, as I stated in the last question, the Internet does not replace the university. I think the in-person experience is incredibly valuable, especially having a mentor in education is critical. What the Internet does is supplement so that you can relook at a course that you took and review, or if you were sick or out of town, you can not lose the thread of the course. You can keep up. So that's the way the Internet really supplements education. And in terms of there was a question on the stream, and I don't remember the details of the second half.
There was some concern about values and discipline, and whether we can have some of those interactions that goes on in a classroom situation online. I think that those people who take internet courses ought to be much more disciplined than those who are under peer pressure or have eye contact with the faculty. So if you want to take a course on the internet, you have to have certain discipline, you have to follow through, you have to make sure that you manage your time very well.
Yeah, and along that line, there's some new software that's just been developed by a company called NetPodium, and the moderator or teacher actually knows every single person online and can have a one-to-one communication with them while the course is going on, so questions can be general or specific.
Absolutely, and you know, this is an important issue, so let me just do a follow-up on that. I receive more electronic mail from my students who are learning from me at a distance than those who are present in classroom. So there is much more personal communication between the faculty and the distant learner. In fact, one of the fears of those people who teach online is how many email messages they can respond to during a regular day.
And we have a question from the Instituto Tecnológico de Tepic, Nayarit, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
How much is radio's influence growing via internet, and do you think it's competing with the traditional system? Radio on internet, is it competing with the regular radio broadcast, and what's the situation here, do you know?
Yes, I think the radio question is very similar theme to what we've been saying all along, that the internet really supplements. Let me give you an example. You're driving to your car, in the morning to work. Now with the internet, the radio broadcaster is trying to remind you about the URL, and when you get out of your car and get in the building, to make sure you turn on the radio station. So it's definitely supplementing the experience and the bond between the broadcaster and the listener. In addition, the radio station now can sell products and sell advertising online to supplement the revenue stream, and it makes for a much more cost-effective business. So I think the internet is a tremendous boon for radio stations.
And the availability of some of the broadcasts, I was just browsing last night, and I found radio stations from faraway countries that I would never ever be able to access on the internet.
I've noticed it with sports fans in a remote country from their native teams can listen to broadcasts which was never possible before the web. We have a question now from Lima, from the Universidad Nacional de Ingeniería in Lima, Peru. Welcome. Your question, please.
This is the National Customs School. We know that there is a social change with technology. How fast is it going to reach the South American countries, and how has this technology transfer been diminishing from the developed countries to the developing countries? And we would like you to tell us a little bit about the experiences, your experiences about the benefits for these technologies in organizations like customs.
Right now, the traffic we deliver for literally hundreds of media companies, mainly it's U.S. language, but 40% of our traffic is from outside the U.S. So, and a significant amount from South America, probably something in the 10 to 15% range. So I do see significant penetration in South America. And in the customs, is that like immigration and customs? Or is it the custom? Maybe it's the customs of the culture of a civilization. And I do think more and more you see international brands like Coke and Nestle's, and so in that sense, there's more of a homogenization of culture by travel and communication. But I also see the opposite trend. The Internet is a trend of niches where people who really are passionate about an area or a culture can really get deeply involved. So I think the Internet is actually great for enhancing culture.
And we have a question from the Universidad La Salle in Mexico DF. Welcome. Your question, please.
Morning. Besides the bandwidth for Internet 2 and the streaming, what other requirements are there to manage to handle audio and video, technical requirements?
Well, let me just comment. Audio and video is occurring on Internet 1, and we have about 2/3 of the people who listen to and view audio-video streams are coming in over 28.8 modems. And about close to 1/3 are coming in over 56 or greater modems. So it's available today as long as there's a 28.8 connection.
Is there any real difference in audio and video in the web now than there was a few years ago?
Yeah, there's absolutely been a dramatic improvement in the quality of both the audio and video streams, as well as in the cost of the bandwidth has been dropping dramatically, and the cost of the servers. So this is what's partly led to the rapid deployment of audio and video.
Okay. And do you see the streaming technology spreading rapidly, or is that going to be a niche?
It's definitely not a niche. There are over 20,000 websites today that have audio-video streamed through their site. And we are absolutely seeing an exponential growth in streaming. Last year, we had something on the order of 100,000 different audio-video files that we streamed, and today, in less than a year, we're at over 1.5 million files.
We have a question from the Instituto Politécnico Nacional Educación Continua in Mexico DF. Welcome. Your question, please.
Buenos días. Could you elaborate a little more on the economies of scale when it comes to use of streaming for a particularly higher education organization?
Okay. Well, I think the economies of scale are several-fold. First of all, the bandwidth could be a factor of 5 cheaper if you buy it in bulk. And managing the network is pretty much equivalent no matter what the scale of the network. So that's definitely an economy of scale. And finally, there's the economy of scale, which is probably the most important piece for universities, of leveraging the faculty so that they can get additional revenue streams from further away places.
One of the questions that strikes me is all of those complex, subtle social implications of the web. To me, this is the largest revolution in popular communication since, say, the introduction of television in the mid-20th century. And that had very interesting effects like rearranging furniture in the living room, changing people's daily schedule of when they did things and what markers they used for parts of the day. What kinds of complicated, subtle implications do you see emerging now with the web?
Well, there are two things. Like you commented before, I have 4 PCs in my house, and that's because everyone wants to see their own thing. And with the advent of cable, when you went from 5 channels to 50, I go crazy with my kids keep changing the channels. You see 15 seconds of every show. So, I think it really is a natural evolution when you have more content that you want to be able to personalize that content. The other thing we're seeing, I think, just globally, is that people work a lot harder. They get in earlier, they stay longer. And so what you see is that people during lunchtime and various times during the day will get their news and entertainment while they're working, so it's more interspersed.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for your excellent answers. We have run out of time. Especially thank you to Dr. Saba and Dr. Gruber. We hope that you have enjoyed participating in this video conference. And thank you to all of our associates for your enthusiastic assistance. The International Training Center will continue transmitting programs on topics crucial to improving our productivity and global competitiveness in the new millennium. We invite you to participate on June 3rd, 1999 in the 6th program of our 1999 series. For additional information on the International Training Center's programs, please consult your participant's manual. Also, if you are interested in participating in training programs which will be offered by the International Training Center, please contact the Center by letter, phone, fax, or email. On behalf of the International Training Center and all the members of our team here in San Diego, California, I thank you for your participation and interest in today's program. May you successfully seize the opportunities of today and tomorrow.